Hi everyone, my name is Adawgz and thank you all for coming to my channel. So today I'll be going over a tier list for D-BT08 Minerva Rising. With that out of the way, we'll jump into the tier list. So we'll start off with rank 8. So first of all, we do have Cardfight. So Cardfight I probably want to put around B. Definitely a solid deck, it can make big numbers. It's actually really good at filtering to eventually when you have triggers. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say exactly like Ava, but it definitely can be fairly tanky, and yeah, it can be a little bit slow at first, and once the ball starts rolling, it's actually pretty solid. Next we do have Welstra. So this is without the new support, so this unfortunately goes in D. It's just, yeah, set 9 definitely helps the deck a lot. It helps it with, the set 9 pretty much helps fix some of the deck's inconsistencies that it has. And when that set 9 does come out, it will definitely jump this deck up by quite a bit. Ava is definitely an ST deck. It has Obfuscate that can create resist. You also do have your Obfuscate, which can also be intercept, and the act as 10k shields. You have, Ava's skill, which allows you to add a card from your hand depending on how many orders you have from the top. So for example, you look at the top 4, you have 4 orders, you can add one from the top 4 and put the rest on the bottom. Then you also do have the new order, which allows you to pretty much on play the top 5 and then call one card from the top 5 out to Vanguard circle, and it really works extremely well with the Obfuscates for the fact that when they're placed, they do get their extra effects into play by cards ability. So you can legitimately have an Obfuscate with an extra crit straight off the bat as well. And also have an Obfuscate coming out, the Greater Obfuscate, which if it's called out by the order, can automatically attack the front row, so the opponent can't play around that at that stage. So yeah, Ava's definitely very solid. Just the order helps a lot, the Wave of the Rios helps a lot as well, being like just a solid beater by itself. And then yeah, previously it was still a really strong deck too, but just had a couple extra cards that made it even better. Gravidia definitely still got me. Gravidia definitely, if you sack with it, especially if you go for my meteors, 5 meteors straight off the bat, and you hit like a crit for example, the opponents of a PG, they can pretty much just kill them almost instantly. It still has a decent good amount of control. It unfortunately has a bad matchup against Ava. That's not too great, but again, if Ava doesn't have like a PG for example, and you can go for your 5 meteors, it can really hinder them very bad. Good matchup against Jet as well, since he's constantly destroying the board as well. Sort of against Youthberg too, so definitely put that as an ET deck. Heroes, I probably want to put them in C. They're still okay. They kind of start going off when they really hit 3 bases, and sometimes it can take a little bit to actually get those bases going, and when it does, the game, well, for you, feels very lackluster, and it can spiral out of the control for the opponent where you can't come back. So unfortunately put it in C, definitely needs some work. Orphist Regulus, Orphist, I probably would have put him in A. Very aggressive deck, especially if you go on the first, you set up your overcoming eternity. You can make some really big Shadow Army tokens straight off the bat, especially doing multi-attacks as well. It can be very fast and hit like a truck if everything goes well. So definitely, I think I'll put all of this in A, as I said, because it's a fast deck. It does well against decks like Youthberg, Ava, Jet. The deck's pretty much where you want to be as fast as possible to try and kill them. As again, if with Youth Perk, Ava, and Jet, for example, as more time goes on, they get stronger, and they make more hand, and if you can't break through that hand, you're up struggle street. So definitely offers still an A, because it does have a there is a kind of like a spot where Orphis can really put itself in and actually like kill these decks. I believe this is set 7, Java, so I'm just going to put all of these, definitely put these in C, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, it can still be quite solid depending on what you open, especially if you go on first. You can make your brands, you're making big numbers as well, you can like nuke boards. That's definitely very cool, but it definitely does have a hard matchup against decks that can control the board, like get rid of your crossover dress units. So stuff like Ava, because take the front row because of the grade 2 Obscurade. Then you also do have Tempest if they do manage to hit a certain grade that can bottom deck your stack of crossover dressed units. And also even Jet can also spin that back too, so it's definitely not a good matchup for Java. And there's also quite a few other decks as well, again like a VDR, that can also control the board very well too. Another deck that can control the board is Prism, so I think Prism's still going A. It still has a very good matchup against the decks under it. It just really struggles against the decks that are above it, as they can create a lot of resources and stuff. Instead of the idea of Seraph is like a resource game, you want to squeeze the opponent of all the resources as possible, but unfortunately these decks can play around and play it up than what Seraph is doing, so that's why I put her in A. But again, still pretty strong, because usually the decks under it, she can play really well in against, so I put her in A. Eugene. After a lot more testing, I'm probably going to put Eugene at the bottom, or when I fix it up, maybe at the bottom of B, maybe a little higher than B, but B, it's still okay. I did get the promo, which helped the deck a bit as well, being able to stack your Esperadias on top of the deck, so you can use Eugene's skill to call them out, so you can multi-attacks. You still have Oswald, which can be reliable as long as you do manage to clear the opponent's board. Again, it's a deck that also struggles against Ava, since the grade 1 Ava order can give their Obscurades resist, so it definitely hurts the deck a lot. So in that scenario, the kind of way for EG to kind of play around that is to hopefully open the promo, and then the promo stacking Esperadias to get multi-attack, so you can put pressure on Ava. Otherwise, it might just be free vanilla swings, and it isn't that great. So I still put him in Vegas. As I said, it does have fairly good matchup against other decks too. Just yeah, some of the higher decks, it can be a bit of a problem. Next we have the grade 4 Nirvana. I'll probably put grade 4 Nirvana maybe above Arclight. I think it's still a good deck as well. I said the highest to B, but I could honestly go to bottom of A as well. It's still pretty solid. Again, if you go on second, if you have Amelia, you can ride straight to grade 4, which means you can get triple drive. You can use the ping of the Maha as well. You can give constant 10k front rows on an overdress unit. You can instantly use Esperadias if you have them in hand. So it still has a very can have a pretty powerful high roll going second. So I definitely do put Maha in B. We'll go with that Sagara. So this one, Bevsagara surprisingly does fairly well against Jet and Youth Perk. Again, being able to turn on the front row, make big numbers, is very good. Against Ava, it's interesting. It does make big numbers, so Ava is forced to put a lot of guard down, and if you open free trick moons, for example, you can make some big columns which Obscurades can't guard completely against. So I probably want to put Bev Sagra, I think, at least around the B area as well. But instead, it does have a good matchup against these certain decks, kind of around A and S. So it's still fairly solid. So definitely around B. We do have Shoujo Doji. For him, he definitely isn't a C deck. I definitely would say put maybe. I did say I put Eugene at the bottom of B, but I don't know. Like, there are people at locals who play Shoujo Doji, and it does honestly have potential. I probably would put it above Eugene. It can honestly make some big columns with the triple R grade 3. I'm pretty sure if it's like called by Billy or something, it's 10k, and then I'm pretty sure you can draw a card. I think if it's called by Shoujo Doji as well, I'm pretty sure, and it can do some solid multi-attacks as well. One good thing about Shoujo Doji is it can bind the opponent's cards, and then at the end of the turn, if the opponent hasn't got rid of the cards, they can put them back to hand. But Shoujo Doji actually does have a fairly good matchup, a decently good matchup against Ava, for example, because its skill, I'm sure, being a counterblast 1, and then take the 2 of the opponent's cards and bind them, so you can bind the Obscurades, which means there's less shield value for Ava, which is very major. It's very good to set against other decks as well. Just say, for example, like for example, like Orphist, Shoujo Doji is being like get rid of their show army tokens, and against other decks who are kind of like regard reliant, by Shoujo Doji getting rid of those regards, if they can put on the bottom of the deck, it then means they forced to commit cards next turn which have been removed, and it also have to do with Shoujo Doji with also have to do with the pressure from Shoujo Doji on top, since Shoujo Doji can hit some pretty good numbers. So definitely put him in B. Temiyura. I think Temiyura is probably around here. Temiyura is definitely scary. It can be quite scary if it's going first. It can make some decent columns now compared to what it was in set 5. It, for example, it can, if you have both your grade 2 dolls and grade 1 dolls, the grade 1 dolls, one of them gets you counter charge, and then the other one allows you to get something 5k power, so you can sometimes swing for 18 and 23, or you can give power to your Temiyura as well to make it harder to guard. Another great thing about the dolls as well, because they got the broken toys order, it's actually a lot more consistent to get your dolls, so technically you run 16 dolls, and if you do get 2 dolls, or if you have like both Rirami and Rarami and the Soul, you actually get to draw one off the order, so that's very strong. So it just helps set things up for Temiyura too, so that, yeah, definitely having the grade 1 dolls are very great in terms of the deck, and then also the promo, the broken dolls, definitely helps the deck a lot too. Yeah, so I think it's definitely a solid, very solid B deck. Next we do have Overlord. Overlord most definitely is an ST deck. So Overlord itself, so it is somewhat slow, as you first have to go into normal Overlord, and then after that you ride the end, and then after you ride the end you can Persona ride the end of the end, as long as you have an end in hand. but it can make a decent amount of hand because of the promo. It acts as a 1-card discard, but it also acts, when it's discarded, it can be called a Reguard Circle and it becomes a 13k booster, so it can help make some good numbers, especially with your Burning Horns, because Burning Horns are getting plus 5k from your Overlords when they attack. So if you put the promo behind the Burning Horn, for example, it can make a 33k column. So you actually have, you know, a solid Vanguard which can swing twice, and then you also do have some solid Reguard columns as well because of help. So the promo is definitely very crazy for the deck. It's definitely very, very good. It's kind of really the main piece you really want to get for Overlord, just to constantly keep your hand up. So less, you could say, a little bit less piece reliant compared to some other decks. So definitely put that on S. Barrow Magnus, we will put to you. I think I'll put Barrow probably around here. So Barrow himself is definitely high rolling. Definitely in this format, you want to high roll as quick as you can, kill the opponent as quick as possible, try to get 15 soul on your first grade free turn, and just bash face, hope that it works out. If the opponent does manage to survive, it starts going downhill for the Barrow player. I want to say, if you go in first, you at least have 2 turns to try and kill the opponent. If you're going second, you potentially have 2 turns, but depending on what kind of deck you're versing, they could push you in a corner, a really bad corner, a really bad spot where you may not be able to hit 15 soul, because if you had to guard your card to survive. So it's because of that I put Barrow in B. I definitely think it's a C deck, and if you still think it's B, because I said that if you do everything aligns, you do get off the high roll, he is strong. So, and next we have Bruce. Bruce, I think I want to put. So Bruce is definitely still good. The cards that you get solid. The final rush, once you reach there, is pretty good too. It's a little bit slow. Sometimes on your first one you can't do much unless you open, I think it's Jillian. Although I think maybe I'd put Bruce. Actually, yeah, I think I'm going to put Bruce above from Maha. I might put him in here. For the run too. I think Bruce is still very strong. As I said, once you get your Fire Rush going, your Persona Ride, the deck does start to become very scary. As I said, strong multi-attacks. It can make a bit of a decent amount of advantage and stuff too. Yeah, I think it's definitely pretty solid overall. I think the problem that it lacks currently is that if you don't see your Jillians, don't see your Jillians, and if you go second, it can be a bit of a problem. As I said, you start to pop off in your Final Rush turn after 1 turn on grade 3, and sometimes your grade 3 turn can be very vanilla, might just be swinging with your Vanguard or a Reguard or something like that, so it can be quite lackluster. So because of that, I still put it in B, as I said, but once the ball goes wrong and everything goes well, it's definitely a monster, so I definitely put it high above B. I just want to say as well, I think some of the decks that are kind of high B, I feel like they could be eventually put in A, but I feel like you need someone who commits to the deck, who understands, knows their matchups and stuff like that. I feel like that can kind of really push the deck above, higher than in the tier that it is. Next we have Jet, so 100% definitely an ST deck. Now, one thing I do want to point out though, if you don't know how to play Jet correctly, this goes from S to like probably like a D. Unfortunately, I mean that honestly, because Jet does require quite a bit of skill to play it. You need to manage your resources using your GGs and stuff as well, getting your spells and stuff like that too, or other cards you maybe put for Sweller. But yeah, it's definitely intricate, especially again even the grade 2 game as well. Also trying to survive against decks that can hit very fast, very hard, or decks that can out-resource the deck very well. So for example like Ava, or even potentially Overlord. I said if they go first, Overlord goes first, like for example, they can swing at Regards, or they have the pressure from the Vanguard as well, depending on what they open and stuff too. It can be quite scary. Going up against Gravidia, as I said, depending on what they get, Jack can be in a bad spot. Even Snow, because Snow gets rid of the soul, and it forces them to cast from their hand and field as well. So it can be very bad for Jet. So if you're very skilled with Jet's definitely 100% S. But if you don't know how to play the deck correctly, the deck feels absolutely terrible. So that's just in my opinion. So if you don't know how to play the deck correctly, I think it goes S all the way down to D or something deck. Because as I said, I've been at tournaments where a Hex role player has been absolutely destroying all these Jet players, and I think it may be due to not having the knowledge of how to play against certain decks with Jet. So but again, Jet's still a very, very powerful deck if you play it correctly. That's why it's definitely an S. Greedon definitely is an AT deck. You have the triple restrain Greedon, which is very scary, hits giant numbers, hits big numbers too. Or you can just go for just a 2 attack Greedon. Then you have your Dofund with crit in there as well. Again, just having 3 solid attacks too. Greedon, yeah, definitely feels, I think it's very Vanguard centric. Going first, it can be quite scary. Again, since it can potentially swing twice or 3 times depending how well you open, you could quite honestly be in a very bad spot very quickly. So I think Greedon definitely isn't A. Again, I think that's just a solid deck overall. And as I said, as games go by, or as time goes by, like when you're playing Greedon, getting to not being dying at 7 damage is definitely very good. It kind of adds a bit of a tankiness to the deck itself. So because of that, I put Greydon in A. Next we do have Drajord. Drajord I probably put around maybe here. So I think the problem with Drajord personally is that it can be quite piece reliant. It requires you to open your the grade 2s that restand themselves to try and get multi-attacks off Drajord. Otherwise it's just a free attack deck, to scaling your opponent's power to 1. but sometimes that can be lackluster. The fact it doesn't get any crit as well until the opponent is on grade 3 too, that can hurt someone a little bit too, because you're kind of then really hoping that you do open the restanders so you can put in pressure really quickly. Again, going first to open those pieces against decks like Ava, Youthberg, Overlord, and Chet as an example, it can definitely really hurt those decks a lot. So it definitely has potential, like as long as it opens well, you go first, and you know you're playing a deck that's slightly slower, you can actually have a really good chance of winning. And it does have a good chance against winning against these decks too, and kind of like the dual decks in B and C too. It just depends on how well you open with it. So I definitely put it in B. Definitely not a bad deck. Chaos. I have done some testing with Chaos. It's definitely not bad. I definitely don't think it's a C deck. Definitely don't think it's an A deck. I think I'm going to put Chaos around here. Actually, is Chaos going to Shadow Doji though? Shadow Doji. Terror is definitely a lot stronger than Chaos, so I don't think it's above there. Cardfight's definitely better. Bava, I feel like it's better too. I'm gonna put it in B, but I kind of want to say Chaos could potentially be on the same level with Shadow Doji, especially if you get to 13 soul on your first turn. Your main aim is to get your Mekanis, do your 5 attacks, hope you have 13 souls and give everything 10k. It definitely does help if you get your 13 soul. Otherwise, you're just kind of focusing on getting your Mekanis out and just doing just the standard 5 attacks. The Gravel Mekanis help with that consistency, so I put Chaos in B. Lukier, I think I want to put above Drajord. I think Lukier is definitely solid. It definitely makes big numbers and hits like a truck. It does have I want to say like somewhat decent amount of, okay amount of draw power, I guess I would say. It does have the helm filtering from the AAA dragons. Lukier herself does tuck 2 cards on soul to draw 1, so that has that going for it too. It does have multi-attacks thanks to the order as well. Yeah, I think definitely Lukier thinks a solid B deck. Bastion. Bastion goes here. So Bastion Prime's turn, when you get to Prime turn, it's absolutely nutty. But the problem is you need to get to the Prime turn. Because you are a deck that does not do much until you get to grade 3, you're pretty much left wide open on your both 1 and 2 turn. You can't make any forms of aggression unless you somehow manage to luck off your grade 1 when you reveal 2 grade 3s and call something. Otherwise, there's no aggression, you're kind of just doing normal turns. Now, in saying that, they did get the Dark Strain lifted, so you can run a place of Dark Strains in the deck. You also do have the grade 3 that can give things boost too, so you can definitely make some strong numbers. But I definitely feel that with Bastion, if you go second, you definitely feel it. It definitely hurts a lot. If you go first in the deck, you make some very powerful columns. You can make 30k columns, which again, on someone who's on grade 2, that's pretty much, you have to commit a front, like as an example, if you run fronts and something else on top, but essentially you have to commit a couple of cards. And depending on how hard you push the opponents, if you went first with Bastion, you can kill on the prime turn, or have the potential to kill on the prime turn. But I definitely feel that, again, since it doesn't have much of an early game too, even if the opponent goes second, depending how hard they hit the Bastion player could still be up struggle street, because again, they'd have to make sure they're getting like good pluses off their Aldens, like getting triggers or like other forms of shield value to pretty much keep Bastion, to pretty much kind of stabilize the deck and hold on to actually get to your prime turn. So I still think Bastion is definitely a solid deck, as I said, but I just feel it's quite, it can be quite slow. Again, as I said, against the, kind of like the other decks that are above it, I just think it's a little bit slow, but I think it's still good. As I said, the prime turn's absolutely nutty, but I think it's just a little bit slow. Graham Grace. Graham Grace I definitely think's in B as well. I'm going to put Graham Grace above Dredlord. So Graham Grace is good. So it allows you to, first of all, pretty sure you get to call a card to back and draw one, and then at the end of battle the Regard attacks on the back. I'm pretty sure you get to put it in the soul and draw one as well. So it does make some hand advantage, which is very good, and it also has multi-attacks as well, and I'm pretty sure you can do this regardless whether the opponent's on grade 3 or not, like when you get to your Graham Grace. So I think that's pretty solid. And as I said, I'm pretty sure it gives the Regard 10k too, which is nice. Again, the Regard could be swinging for 23, or if the Regard has any getting power, it can potentially hit some good magic numbers where a 15k shield may not be enough. So I think Graham Grace definitely, goes in this spot here, because again it can make some magic numbers, it does multi-attacks, and it can draw a decent amount of cards, so I definitely put it in B. Hexorb. This is a deck that I've played a lot, and I do enjoy the deck a lot. I've tried it with Gwendolyn's as well, which I feel like is probably the best way to play currently. But I'm trying to think where I would put it. Definitely not C. Again, unfortunately it's not A ever. I'm probably going to put Hexorb here. Now the reason why I put it above, oh fuck, I don't know. Actually, yeah, no, I'll put it here. The reason why I put it above Temura and the other ones as well. I don't know if I could put it on Arclight, possibly. Depending on how well you do on your first grade 3 turn. Some of the forward decks, it does really can hurt them. So I might put, oh no, Arclight's pretty good too. I think I'm gonna move Arclight up a little bit more. I think it definitely needs a bit more. I think it's definitely a lot better. I'm gonna put it here. I think Arclight can maybe be here. As I say, because unfortunately, like, even though it can, like, you know, filter locking and triggers, make big numbers and stuff like that, I don't think it has a crazy tankiness. Now I could be wrong, does it, the crazy tankiness as Ava itself. So, and then I'll probably put Hexorb probably around here. So what Hexorb has specifically going for it currently in this format, so again, it can go off pretty hard in grade 3 if you open the lot of readers and stuff as well, if you're looking to push with that. Again, getting added benefit of when you reveal a trigger, you can give additional unit 10k power, so that's very solid. It does have a pretty good grade 2 game. The grade 2 game pretty much being able to try and search for a trigger, stack it, and then just hit the trigger if you're lucky to find a trigger from your skills, from like your S-no-nos, and the I can't remember her name, I think it's not Quadracast, but it's a rare one. It's like top 2, one in the soul, even on top. Little things like that, it can kind of make a grade 10 game a little bit more scarier. Persona ride turns can be absolutely insane, so depending on how many lot of readies you're open to. Especially if you're also opening Gwendolyn's as well, you can legitimately shred the opponent's hand. So I think it's definitely in B, but I also feel like depending on how well you high roll and how good you can stack, honestly, like how depending on how good you stack as well, it definitely has the potential to do very, very well. So B's, I think I definitely put it in B. It does have some good potential depending on how well you can stack for the deck, and depending on how well you depending on how well like you can hold on, I guess, with the deck, I guess, itself. And again, being able to hold in certain pieces and then just kind of like push into center right turns. So I think I'll put it in B. Minerva's definitely an A. I don't even have to think about that. I'll put it here. So Minerva is okay. So Minerva can do quite a few multi attacks when it hits straight to grade 3, while the opponent's at grade 2. It does have the ability to kind of like stack triggers as well. The Vanguard is restand too. That kind of can honestly be quite crazy. I think it's definitely a very, very good deck. And I said the results of some have shown. I think previously on the Springfest there was, I think, in the top 4, I think the first and second place decks both had a Minerva. So just the depending on how well you open, and depending on how many of the I think the witches you see, you can actually do some good multi-attack extensions. So I think she's definitely a good deck. Definitely put her in here. MLB. So if you've seen my channel, I've done a lot of testing with MLB, and I honestly think that it's actually pretty good. Specifically the new Whiteheart MLB. Personally, the extra 2k power making 15k base actually helps a lot. I'm going to honestly put it here. Yes, it's quite high, but okay. So for people who don't know what New Harder MLB is, the idea is MLB wants to pretty much get rid of the opponent's board, and then your board, and get New Harder on board. And then Nuada has a skill where if it's the only rig-up when it attacks, it gets 5k, and at the end of battle it restands. So the idea is you can use your Blaster Blaze and Blaster Darts to pop the opponent's board, and then you can use your MLB to suck them in the soul, give you an extra drive, again crit stuff as well. And you can stack all your triggers onto your Nuada, and they can swing for a decent, for a pretty big number, depending on how well, depending on how triggers you get. Also, the 15k base is actually pretty good too. So depending on how well, so depending if you open a trigger, if you reveal a trigger, you can essentially shut off the opponent's turn. Just one trigger. Yeah, so I think MLB itself, I think it's definitely comfortably and fairly high B. In my opinion. Now next we do have Thagria. Actually no, sorry, we do have Random Blaster Dragon. I'd probably put, oh sorry, Phantom Blast Overlord, sorry. Phantom Blast Overlord. I would probably put, oh, I definitely want to put this one higher. This one's actually pretty good. It can get pretty strong. Actually, I think I'll put it here. No, sorry, I'll put it here with MLB. I think it's better than MLB. Actually, I think it's probably better than Bastion, to be honest. I'll put it here. So, Phantom Blast Overlord, it does some... If you manage to get your Phantom Blast Dragon into the soul, your Phantom Blast Overlord is swinging for crit. It also can do multi-attacks with Blast the Dark, and you can kind of aggro straight from grade 2. The deck's pretty much like very aggressive. So any decks that are slow or can't kind of maintain a hand in the early game, or even when you go on grade 3 first, it can really put a dent in the opponent's hand. And I think because of that, I feel like Phantom Blast Overlord is kind of like in the higher stages of the higher kind of like higher parts of B. So I think I'll definitely put Phantom Blast Overlord there. Next we have Thegria. So Thegria gets the new support. It's definitely still feels very tanky. I'm possibly gonna put Thegria. Again, it's definitely a B deck. I think I'll definitely put Thegria here. It's not Thegria. I'm assuming it's just this Thegria then, yeah. Again, quite tanky. The new order is definitely very good, being able to draw 2 for center right and give the front row 15k power. It makes pretty much all your reguards become standalone attackers, which is very great. And just overall, the longer the game gets, it can accumulate a lot of value too, kind of like some of the other decks in S. And you can also make some very fat numbers too. So I definitely feel Thegria, even though it's kind of a lot tankier, I definitely feel that with the tankiness, it's definitely stronger than the tankiness and the way it plays is definitely stronger than the game plan of Bastions. So I definitely put Thegria kind of above Bastion. It will be actually above here too. Right, there we go. Next we have Youthberg. Youthberg, I personally don't think is an SE deck. I think it's probably A. Unfortunately with Youthberg, it is very pace reliant. What I mean by that is you need to see your Revel forms, you need to see your Well-Ward Therapy Angels, you need to see the grey one that can put stuff in the soul to give your Revel form extra drive, things like that. Like, if you're unfortunately being like pushed into a corner, you're forced to pretty much always use Tempest every turn to try and create some value. The only problem is that the advantage you're making are in blind draws, and because you run a few grade 3s, sometimes the blind draws may only give you bricks, and if you somehow just draw bricks, like cards have no shield, pretty much the Tempest you've done is kind of not good at all. But in saying that, when everything goes well for it and goes for it, it's definitely a monster of a deck. And that's why I still feel that even though it's kind of pace reliant, I guess there are cards in the deck that can kind of help making it less pace reliant. So in saying that, I think Youthberg definitely sits comfortably in A, and I think in the top of A. So I definitely put Youthberg there. Again, if you're still laying Youthberg, as I said, it's still a perfectly good pick. If you take it for Springer, for example, I think it's still very strong. So it's definitely a great pick. Okay, so we will do the Strikeout ones, and then I'll talk about some of the lyrical decks that I've played and where I think I'll put them. So Adawgz, definitely, I think they definitely go here. Both of them, I feel. Adawgz is good. Again, just being able to recur your roving prison dragons, depending on how well you open, the deck can be absolutely nuts. Just being able to like constantly as well get your counter charge and soul charge back with tier 4 Malice, getting your draws tier 4 Malice as well, as they calling dragons back, looping your persona rides. It always has constant pressure every single turn. So, and it can eventually get to the part where it just snowballs. So it's definitely a very strong deck. So because of that, I feel like the Adawgz definitely go in like a fairly high B. Okay, so for the other Strikeout decks, once I find them, sorry. Flagberg, and if we put it in A, strong multi-attacks, you can have some more, definitely good. If the opponent doesn't see any triggers, the deck pretty much can absolutely annihilate the opponent. But again, on Persona Ride as well, it definitely gets very scary. It's when it gets scariest the most, honestly. It can pretty much push out 5 attacks a turn, and those attacks can definitely be overwhelming, especially on top when your board's being removed too. So, and that guard restrict is definitely very annoying too. So I definitely think Flagbird also sits comfortably in A. So next we have, I'll go Grateful Magnolia. I think it's probably like it's okay. I think it goes here. Grateful Magnolia. I think it definitely goes in A. Grateful Magnolia is definitely still very strong, especially since you can now run the Inlet Pulses. And Inlet Pulse is a very good card. You can be able to get multi-attacks, Inlet Pulse give you your draws and stuff too. Then with the Grateful Magnolia also allowing your grade 2s to intercept from the back row as well, so it has some tankiness too. It's definitely very good overall. So I definitely feel like it definitely is a solid deck. I'll probably put it around here. And I think it's draw a while. I think it's last here. Oh, sorry, Leonon. Leonon. Okay. This deck can definitely be very scary. Leonon can definitely be scary. I'd definitely put Leonon probably around. I think it's a struggle with MLB. I can see it being stronger than PBO if you go first. I think we are. I'll put it here. I feel like Leonon definitely is strong. The only problem I see with it is that if you don't see your Resonance Dragons, if you're not just doing free attacks, you do have the one big Vanguard attack, and you have the other regular attacks. You pretty much try and rely on them as well. If you don't see your Resonance Dragons, you pretty much trying to rely on your Creed Assaults and stuff as well. However, you have like Dianthas in the same hole as Creed Assaults, kind of make bigger magic numbers. The deck definitely gets scary if you open a Resonance Dragon with Leonon. If you open that, the deck is like absolutely scary, especially if you go first, because Resonance Dragon is not restricted. So as long as you open the Resonance Dragon, you open like pieces to get like to use Leonon's skill. It's definitely a very strong B deck, very solid B deck. So I think I definitely put it around here. I definitely think there's a lot of potential. The mask looks pretty good too for it as well. And I think that is all the Stoichea decks. Trying to make sure I haven't missed any of it. Okay, so Kyrie I think is probably around here. Kyrie's still definitely very good. It has somewhat of a meta engine with your melties. Then you have your Kyrie, which is always constantly getting triple drive, and you're also getting multi-attacks as well. So I think Kyrie is definitely a good spot. As I said, you may just trying to make sure you can search for Grateful Kyrie. If you don't get your Grateful Kyrie, you're definitely in a very bad spot. So that's why I believe that Kyrie is definitely in high B. It could potentially go low A, but like I said, if you don't get your Grateful Kyrie, you're completely in a bad spot. That's kind of like the big problem I really see of it. Next, we'll go to Letitia. Now, a lot of people rate Letitia quite low. Well, not quite low, but like kind of not fairly high in the A and S tier. I personally believe, as someone who's been playing Letitia quite a bit now, I don't think it is an S, but I think it is an AET deck. Pretty much, I would say around the same levels as Udok. The deck can be very, very fast. Like, if you get your 4 orders, which actually is really hard to get on a grade 3 turn, or at least with turnaround turn, the deck hits so hard and fast that it can legitimately take out all the decks, I think honestly in A, and the decks in S as well. It can get that fast and make columns so big that it's hard for the opponent to hold on to. So I personally believe Letitia is definitely a very, very strong AD deck. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, sorry, no, Michu, my apologies. I did have tested Michu. I'm not too sure where the other ones go, because I haven't really tested with them, but you can let me know in the comments below where you'd personally put the other lyrical decks, and the other decks pretty much that I haven't put in the list. So Michu, definitely, I think definitely a decent BT deck. I'll put it around here. It can draw a lot, it goes through a deck a lot too, it can be very fast. It makes very big power columns. If you go second, for example, it's usually not too bad as long as you open your Nakano. The promo definitely helped the consistency with Michu as well. So it's kind of like running extra Nakanos in the deck. So I personally believe that Michu is definitely a strong BT deck. I put it probably around a year between between Cardfight and Vanguard. So I think that pretty much wraps up my tier list for set 8. If you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure to leave a like, and while you're down there, why not subscribe and hit the notification bell so that when I upload another video, you'll be notified. Adawgz out. See ya.